In The Man Who Laughs by Victor Hugo, the main character Gwynplaine is disfigured as a punishment to his father on the orders of King James II. But who was Gwynplaine's father, and why did he anger the king so much? So, quick history lesson, and British Talk, History Talk, feel free to add in more stuff. I'm just giving a very brief summary. From 1649 to 1660, England did not have a monarchy. In fact, they got rid of their king in 1649, Charles I, by separating his body from his head. And from that time, 1649 to 1660, England was under the rule and protection of this Puritan guy named Oliver Cromwell and his supporters, who were known as the Roundheads. And in some instances, this was a good thing. There was freedom of the press. You could move up in society if you wanted to. The idea of an aristocracy was either minimalized or done away with altogether. But being under Puritan rule also came with a lot of drawbacks. For instance, you couldn't go to the theater. They literally banned Christmas because to the Puritans, it was too pagan and too Catholic. And for Puritans, paganism and Catholicism are pretty much the same thing. But anyway, the Puritans are the fun is sinful people. So that's what it was. There were some positive things, but for the most part, being under Puritan rule was bleak and dreary and boring as hell. And Cromwell revealed himself to be just a greedy, power-hungry asshole who essentially became a king in everything but name. So after about 10 years of this, the people of England and the once aristocracy, the former parliament members, were like, this sucks, this isn't working out, and Oliver Cromwell's dead now. Great, let's bring back the monarchy. So they bring back the monarchy, they bring back the king, and his name is Charles II. And Charles II, in his own time and historically, has come to be known as the Merry Monarch. He came in and was like, hey everybody, I'm back, let's party like it's 1660, because it is 1660. He brought back the theater, he brought back Christmas, he brought back all the fun, cool stuff that the Puritans had banned. So England was like, great, let's fucking party. This is awesome that the king is back. We never should have gotten rid of him in the first place. And Charles was like, all the parliament members that my dad and were against the monarchy, all you have to do is swear allegiance to me, to the monarchy, and it'll be water under the bridge. I'll give you all your stuff back. We'll act like this never happened. It's a new decade, new dawn, new reign. Let's just move on. So most of the lords who had once been in favor of the Republic were like, great, I'm gonna jump ship and be a monarchist now. Except for Lord Linnaeus Clancharlie, who, to be clear, is a fictional character. Lord Clancharlie was like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna bow to the king just because he brought back all the shiny fun stuff. I'm gonna stick to my principles. And Victor Hugo doesn't necessarily clarify why exactly Lord Clancharlie, an aristocrat, would have supported the idea of a republic, which would have stripped him of all his privilege and made him just like anybody else. But Victor Hugo also makes it clear that, hey, Lord Clancharlie, this guy was no Puritan. He had a girlfriend, and they had a child together out of wedlock, and Lord Clancharlie's girlfriend, who was also an aristocrat, she seemed to support the idea of a republic as well. But once Charles II was on the throne and she saw the tide turning, she became a mistress to the king instead of staying with Lord Clancharlie. And Lord Clancharlie at that point was like, well, I have nothing left now in England. I've lost the woman I loved. I've lost our son David to the court. I'm going to self-exile myself to Switzerland. So he does, and he settles in a quiet little house by a lake near the Swiss Alps. And Lord Clancharlie eventually meets a woman named Anne Bradshaw, who was the daughter of one of the men that ordered the execution of Charles I. And Lord Clancharlie and Anne, they fall in love and they get married, and they have a son together named Fermain. But Anne dies in childbirth, and Lord Clancharlie dies shortly thereafter, leaving Fermain an orphan at 2 years old. And by this point, Charles's brother, James, is now James II. He's king. And King James II is not so willing to be as kind and forgiving to former Roundheads as his brother was. And once King James finds out that Lord Clancharlie is dead, he's like, well, I can't strike out at him anymore, but I can strike out at his son. And so King James orders for Fermain to be given over to this group of vagabonds known as the Comprachicos. The Comprachicos make their living by buying children off of orphanages or poor families, usually people like that, not necessarily the aristocracy, and they disfigure the children through surgery and sell them back to the aristocracy as exotic servants, or they sell them to carnivals as sideshow attractions. So for the Comprachicos to get a royal request, that was a big deal for them. So they take Fermain, and by the king's orders, they disfigure him so his face is fixed into a permanent smile to mock his father's memory. And once that's done, in order to cover his own tracks, in doing that, King James II banishes the Comprachicos from England. So they leave on a ship, but they leave Fermain behind because they don't want him to give away what their trade is. And Fermain, who the Comprachicos have renamed Gwynplaine, he is now left to wander through this terrible snowstorm. And he eventually finds this little girl named Dea, and together they find shelter with this philosopher named Ursus, and Gwynplaine grows up as a clown. And if you know anything about The Man Who Laughs through my videos, you know where the rest of the story goes. But that is the backstory of Gwynplaine's father and why he angered the king so much and why the king wanted to strike out at Lord Clancharlie's son. Pretty dark stuff, right? And yet today there are a lot of parallels with the story of Lord Clancharlie and Gwynplaine with what's going on with the British royal family right now. It's like the one guy, Prince Harry and Meghan, like the two people that are willing to call out the institution on their shit to the point where they're like, hey, if we have to leave in order to protect ourselves and our loved ones, we're going to do that. And yet they are constantly being vilified and seen as just attention seekers. So I honestly would be really curious to know if Prince Harry and Meghan, if they have encountered the story of The Man Who Laughs, because I think they would see themselves within it and get a lot of comfort out of it. But that's just my take. What are your thoughts on Lord Clancharlie? And why do you think he would have supported the Republic? Personally, I view Lord Clancharlie as a poet, a dreamer, a man ahead of his time, someone who would gobble up the philosophers who were writing things that eventually became the ideas of the Enlightenment. I see him as a man ahead of his time, a man who people would say, oh, Lord Clancharlie, you've got your head in the clouds. He is a poet, a dreamer, and definitely he's no Puritan, like Victor Hugo says. What are your thoughts on him?